Hi, so today we're going to talk a little bit about all things labor. We're going to talk about prodromal labor, Braxton Hicks contractions, actual true labor, and the 3 different stages of labor. One of the most asked questions almost every expectant mom asks is, how will I know when I am actually in real labor? This is a completely normal question, especially if you were a first-time mom or if your last birth experience went differently than how you expected. By the end of today's class, you will be able to recognize the signs of true labor and understand the differences between Braxton Hicks, prodromal labor, and actual active labor. You will know when it's time to call me and your provider, and you will feel more confident in trusting your body as it gets ready to bring your precious little baby earthside. So we're going to begin with Braxton Hicks. Rarely labor begins the way we see it in the movies, but it does leave some cues that we will need to talk about. So with Braxton Hicks contractions, your labor starts, or your contractions feel like they're pressing in on the sides of your belly, and your belly goes up into a triangle instead of staying as a round belly bump that you can feel. They're usually mild and they're really irregular. They can come on and be every 5 minutes for about an hour, but if you drink, if you change positions, if you take a shower or eat some protein or empty your bladder, they tend to stop. But they can be really confusing because they feel like an actual labor contraction, except they're starting at the top and they're squeezing, or they're starting in the middle and they're squeezing. If you do some relaxation techniques and breathe through them, or go outside for a walk or go shopping, generally they stop. They tend to start more in the evening when you're relaxed and you're not paying attention to your body, so they can keep you up a lot during the night. Prodromal labor is very confusing because it does squeeze from the top down like regular contractions. They also squeeze around the middle. They can feel very intense, but they do end up softly petering out. You can have prodromal labor for weeks going into your actual labor, and it can be very draining and very frustrating because they do increase in intensity and they can feel like they're getting closer and closer, but then they eventually stop. Even if you empty your bladder or drink a lot or get some protein or change environments, sometimes they still feel like they're convincing. And if they last for more than 4 or 5 hours and they're not really going away, you might want to call your provider. But most often with prodromal labor, by the time you get down to the hospital, they've stopped. That's just the nature of the beast. They're very confusing and it can be very draining. Most of the time, prodromal labor happens because you're anxious, you're excited, and you really just got tired. If you take a nap, a lot of times it refreshes the body, and then you don't feel those contractions as intensely as they once were. You can feel all of the same feelings with prodromal labor that you do with regular contractions, but you tend to not have discharge or increasing intensity, or they don't usually happen in your lower back. Prodromal labor is always up front. Now, the transition between prodromal labor and your actual contractions is where they feel. You're going to feel your actual labor contractions up. The contractions are pulling your uterus up, simultaneously pushing baby's head down. So they're starting from the top and they're squishing baby down. And in doing that, we start to dilate. We start to have your cervix starts to soften, and that word is effacement. So when you go to your doctor and they say you're 50% effaced, that means your cervix is just starting to soften up and getting out of the way. You have to be effaced before you can dilate. So a lot of times if you go into the doctor and you're 70% effaced and only 2 centimeters, people tend to get super discouraged. You're doing a lot of great work. That cervix has to soften. It cannot move out of the way if it's thick and hard. Yeah. It's not going to move. So these contractions are necessary to pull baby's head down, soften that cervix, and get it to start to dilate. And your contractions in the beginning, your early labor contractions can be 7 to 10 minutes apart, 15 minutes apart. It's not time to call me yet. You stay at home, you rest, you get water. Even if your water breaks early in the process, you have 24 hours before we need to start figuring out what's preventing baby from coming out. So even if your water breaks really early, you don't have to rush. You don't have to jump in your car and let me know and go over to the hospital. If your water breaks and contractions are really intensifying, they're like 1.5 to 2 minutes apart, that's when you need to get in the car and give me a call and I meet you there. But those contractions have to be in the right position too. If baby's head is coming down and she's this way, you're not pushing on that cervix enough. And so she's going to stay this way until we kind of move the position with other positions that we'll talk about later to get her head to be fully engaged in that pelvis. Another thing you're going to be hearing about are stations of the head. A 3 is up here. She's still kind of moving around. She can, get out of the right position a little bit too easily. A 2 and a 3 are here. We get to a 0 station, and we're getting ready to need to call the doctor in. A -1, -2, she's not going to come out, and -3 station is when she is ready to come out. And if we have all things go the way we hope, she's just going to slip right out, and you get to catch your baby. Here she's coming. And see, we got baby out, but the placenta's not going to come out yet because we can't deliver the placenta this way. But here she comes, and your uterus doesn't tend to come out either because that would be awful. But here's your baby. She comes out.
How cute's a little placenta.
Yep, and here's your little placenta. So she's out. And I've tied a knot in it because I did. So here's your little sweet baby. She's out. And then Elias gets to come in here and, where is it? Cut her cord.
Oh, wow.
They clamp it off around here. And you slip some little scissors in there.
Mm-hmm.
And off she separates. Now this isn't as long as it will be on her. It'll be short, and then they'll clamp it off.
Oh,
Okay.
And then they hand her to mommy on her chest. And you get to hold her and love her. Now the 3 stages of labor that we need to go over are the very beginning stages of labor. Those contractions are coming on and they're 15 to 20 minutes apart. And they're about 20 to 30 seconds, but they're different. They feel like your period's gonna start.
Yeah.
Those are the ones where you need to kind of clear a calendar, make sure you have enough food packed and your laundry's done. You can wash your hair and get ready. You don't have to do anything yet, but just kind of
get ready.
Yeah, get stuff as much of your schedule cleared off as possible, because the difference between true labor contractions and your Braxton Hicks or prodromal is over the course of days they'll get closer and closer and more intense and more intense.
Okay.
So the second stage of labor is we've gone through all of our dilating. So first stage of labor is 0 to 4. You're getting to feel the contractions. They're bugging you, but not enough for you to need to stop breathing or stop talking, and concentrate on breathing through them.
Yeah.
These are just going to feel a little bit irritating, just
Like
kind of
your
grumpy,
period.
like your period's going to start. You'll notice a difference between 4 and 5. They'll get closer together and stronger.
Okay.
You're going to need to focus on breathing and relaxing and submitting to the process. Otherwise, if you stay really tense,
Yeah.
you're going to
or
get
you have to
stuck
relax.
right in here.
Kind of let it
Yeah, because if you're,
happen.
it's just like if you go to the bathroom and somebody walks in on you, you stop. You get
Yeah.
nervous, you tighten up.
Yes.
We need everything to be nice and loose and relaxed. But once we get in through here, this is the stage of dilation where you're going to notice the biggest change. There's
From-
going
from
from
5 to
6.
7.
7 is transition. 7 is where you hear in the movies, I can't do this anymore. What have you
Okay.
made me do this? Where's my epidural? Make this stop. I don't think I can do this anymore. And as we get closer, we're going to prepare for this kind of how to manage the pain. We're
Okay.
not going to cover that today, but once you get through transition, that stage is that time period is usually the shortest. You can be 0 to 4 can take 2 weeks.
Yeah, I heard that.
It can take a lot longer. 4, 5, 6, it's usually a centimeter an hour, but not everybody does that. I've had clients that go from 4 to, complete in a couple of hours. So it just all depends. That's usually when you're going to call me and we'll go over to the hospital and see how you're feeling. 7 to delivery can only take a little bit, a couple hours. It just kind of depends on how relaxed you're getting. if you're feeling confident, if he's, giving you all the massage techniques and, and baby's not in a weird position. So if she's in a funky position and we get stuck at some point, then we will work on positions and opening you up. But the second stage of labor is actually when you birth your baby, where you're doing your pushing. We get you on your side and hold your legs back, and we'll talk about the pushing and the breathing. The third stage is when the placenta comes out. We have to deliver the placenta at the end after baby's born. That's the third stage of labor. And then after that, the fourth stage is postpartum. And we will talk about all of that later. So are there any questions at this point?
No, not for me.
Okay, well, thank you. That was fun.